Hello, I'm Chris, this is Gross Models, and this is the special modifications and weathering update to the Deagostini R2D2 build. If you haven't seen the previous builds, there's like 60 odd of the build videos around. It finished after issue 100. Then I had to do a special video of the app, because I didn't have the app until I just uploaded the last video. And this is, I promise, the last one in the series of R2D2 videos. This is the one where I'm going to do little modifications and tidy him up and make him look a little bit more like the droid we all love. The first thing I'm going to do to him, before any weathering, is a little modification that I know a few people have done and is purely optional, and is restraining bolt. Now this is one that I've printed using my 3D printer. I found the file on thingiverse.com and it looked about right, so I printed it off at 48% of real scale, which looks to be the right size for the R2. It's not quite 50%. 50% was a little bit too big. So I'm going to be putting that onto the front panel where it sits in the film, and I'm going to weather around it, so even when it's not on there, it will look like, you know, he's had one on there and it's got dirty around it. Now to do that, I'm going to be using a couple of magnets. Now these magnets are just spares that I've had around from other projects and things. I figure I can put the little thin one on the inside of the door and perhaps use a bit of hot glue just to hold that in place, so it's not going to be in the way or cause any problems. And the big one, I'll be able to drill and cut out the bottom of this and mount it into there. Now I've tried these on their own either side of the door and they work fine. I got actually a little bit of plastic there, so I'll put that down underneath there. Obviously this is a much thinner plastic than the door itself, but as you can see, it works, it holds. It actually works very well, because it actually will even pick it up through a finger. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be strong enough to go through the single layer of plastic and hold a very light plastic bit on. Now this, I say, it's been 3D printed, so it's got some layer lines in it. I did it on very fine quality, so they're not bad at all. I am just going to sand it down a little bit and then see about painting and, as I say, drilling out and gluing in the magnet. I need to get it the right way around. Well, it doesn't matter which way around I get that one, as long as I get the other one the right way around, because if you do it the wrong way around, then it won't stick to it. It will force itself away from it, because that's how magnets work. So I've got them to use. I'm going to start off just by, so just sanding down the big areas on this. Being that it's PLA plastic, sanding is a pain. If you sand too hard or too quickly, basically you heat up the plastic and melt it a little bit, and then you can't do anything with it at all, or you're back to where you were basically. But it's not too bad. I'm not worrying about getting it, you know, a perfect shiny finish, because this is again going to be painted and weathered and made to look knackered. So the odd lines and scratches and grooves on it only add to the finish rather than making it look worse. So I'm going to get on with that. I'm going to be painting this in basically blacks and metallics, a combination of the two, mainly a dark, almost black, and then some highlight edges and things like that. So I'm going to get that done off camera, because I say you've all seen painting and weathering before. There's nothing special about this. It's mainly just, say, covering it in black and then highlighting some steel and metals over the top of it, after I've spent several hours sanding a little bit and making it look a little bit used and worn. So I'll come back to you when I've got something else to show you, and we'll see how it goes. So the picture I've found from the Star Wars wiki is slightly different to the one that I've got here. The detail on the top piece is slightly different, but not wildly so, and everything else is close enough that I'm happy with it. So basically I need silver and black, and then some weathering with sort of more sort of I don't know what sort of browny black, browny grey, yeah, some sort of texturing. So I'll be doing black on the inside bit first, and I'll do the bit around the edge there as well while I'm here, and then a bit of touching up and doing some silver. So I'll be doing it with brush painting rather than trying to do any airbrushing and masking. It's not worth masking on something of this size. So basically I'm going to get some blacks on the inside, and then I can worry about doing other bits around the edge. So I've finished the restraining bolt. I've weathered it, dirtied it up and made it a bit nasty. Now obviously it doesn't stick on its own, but I've got another magnet which goes onto the back there quite nicely. So all I need to do is open the door, hold that one side, and that goes on there fine. Now obviously I don't want to be moving it around, opening it up every time I want to put the bolt on, so I'm going to get it where I need it to be, which is pretty much central on this panel according to all of the references that I've been able to see. And where I want the inside bit of the magnet, I'm just going to add some glue. I'm using some of this Gorilla super glue, which is basically a tougher version of normal super glue. It's sort of thicker and works nicer. So what I'm going to do is just add some of that around the edge there, pretty much all the way around the edge, and then I can leave that be for a little while. Don't really need to get it all on the inside. So that at the moment will move around a little bit, so let's just smear that glue around there a little bit, and then we'll get that where I need it to be, and we'll leave it like that for a while, just sort of 5 or 10 minutes will do, and then when that's set I'll be able to take that off. One other thing, while I'm here, we might as well start with the next part of the modifications while we're waiting for that to dry. Now the next part is moving that round so that it doesn't get caught on anything. Let me move the camera down and show you. Right, with a better camera angle, we'll be able to see if I press the power button and stop him running around. Actually, let me turn some lights off, then you'll be able to see. There we go. We've got the blue glow from inside the motor housings, which isn't very nice. Now it's thank you R2, mostly apparent obviously in the recessed thinner parts of the plastic, but the ones coming through the holes aren't going to be too much of a problem because they're going to have the plugs in there as well anyway. But what I need to do is sort that out. Now I don't remember if I put any screws back in these. Yeah, I think I put one screw back in these. What I'm going to do is take these back off and show you a bit of light blocking, light masking to tidy that up. So that's the inside pieces. I just put little marks on there just to show where the worst offender point is, so I don't have to keep turning it over. Now there's several ways you could do this. You could use tape, or basically anything that's going to thicken and darken. I figure the easiest and best way of doing it is just going to be to use some black primer. Now obviously you can paint it on wherever, anywhere you need it, but I reckon the quickest and easiest way of doing it is basically just to put some into both of them, which is probably already doing most of the job of covering over, you know, what you need to cover. You could just tip it around and spread it around, or just use any old brush and just sort of get some coverage over where you know the light's going to be coming out. Most of it, as I say, is going to be in the lines and the grooves. I'll probably need to do another coat of this just to be sure that it's covering everywhere, but basically that's all you need to do. I say it's probably just dribble it in and leave it alone, but it's nicer to get a bit more coverage. Obviously being careful not to get it on the outside of R2, because that needs to stay white, or at least mostly white, until we come up and do some weathering momentarily as well. But on the inside, obviously, it doesn't matter. So I'll leave that to dry. I've obviously got much more in that one. I'll leave that to dry and then come back and do another coat as well, just to make sure. But that is pretty much the light blocking. That was the only area that I saw any problems with light coming through. So that should be okay once I've done another coat of that, after that's dried. And then we'll be able to start some actual proper weathering. Right, while I'm waiting for the paint to dry and the light blocking of the ankles, I'm going to do the next and most severe weathering that I'm going to be doing. I'm using Starship Filth. I've got the oil brusher, which is the same as the enamel oil, sorry, but in a brush form, in a handy applicator. So what I'm doing with this is basically doing a TED and slapping it on. I'm going to be going through all of the panels like that. I'm just going to do this one on camera, doing that, and then using a cloth, basically getting rid of most of it and sort of smearing it in, going sort of up and down, mainly down, and pretty much getting rid of most of it, but leaving it in the grooves and things. What I'm actually doing is I've got one corner of this which has got some X20A thinner on it, which is really getting rid of bits. So the middles of the panels and sort of highlights, I'm almost removing all of it, but letting it gather in the bottom pieces and the recesses. Obviously you can put on more or less. Start with less, because you can always put more on, but you can't put less on. Once you've got it on, you can rub it off, but obviously rubbing it off from inside the creases is difficult. So that basically is what I'm going to be doing with all of these. So going heavier on the bottom, or the tops and the bottoms, as it would. I'll probably go round afterwards and do a more general, sort of bit more focused approach rather than not so much general. Making sure it's turned off in case I press any of the buttons. So this is going to be, as I say, not filthy dirty, but there's going to be a level of grime everywhere, including all the silver bits and obviously into the recesses and things there as well. The one thing that's going to be a little bit more tricky is the restraining bolt, which, now that's interior with the camera at touch, magnet is sitting there. I will be weathering somewhat inside the panels as well. That needs to go there, but he's got to have a sort of a ring around there. So what I'm going to do is filth up sort of around, and I might as well do that panel here while I'm here as well. So mainly in the corners, tops of the door, some down as well. There we go. Now you've got a little while before this sort of sets, so you don't need to worry about rushing to do it, but equally you don't want to leave it too long, because if it does dry in an area that you don't really want it, getting rid of it is a bit tricky. So what I'm going to do is get rid of that. I'm going to smear from the top down into it a bit, and then a little bit more carefully smear down from it to leave that, so even when he's not got the bolt on, you should still be able to see where the bolt goes. So he's got a sort of leaking underneath. There we go. Can't get the lighting right, show you what's what. There we go. So you've got the staining underneath and a bit more circular on the top. I'm just going to smear that down a little bit further. I'll come back in and put in some more detail smears onto that, tidy up the outline a little bit as well. But that's basically what I'm going to be aiming for. As I say, pretty much everywhere, all of the panels, a little bit on the dome, not so much on the dome at all. But that is how R2 is going to look. So I'll get some more of that done and then show you approaching the end. Right, so here we go. This is the light masking done on the insides there. So what I'm going to do is just put it in place with a single screw, power him up and see how it works. So to do that, I'm obviously going to turn out the light again and we'll see what happens. So let's press the bottom button and support the wheel so it doesn't go crazy. There we go. Right, I'm pretty sure that there's not actually any light in there. The blue from the other side, obviously you can see coming through here. But in there, it looks okay to me. Let's turn the other light down and off. There we go. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just the light from that. So yeah, light blocking worked fine. I'll get that connected back up. Weathered, obviously. It's lacking in weathering at the moment. And then we're almost done. So I've covered all of it with the Starship filth and wiped off most of it. I'm going to be adding a little bit more detail. I'm going to be using some of the streaking effects, Starship streaking, which is quite a nice thin, similar colour to the Starship grime. And I'm just going to be brushing in some sort of finer details. Not in a big way. Just some extra streaking sort of under here. So I'm brushing it on and then using a drier brush just to sort of not remove it, but feather it in a bit, blend it a little bit more, just so we get some different effects in there. So it's a little bit more defined in certain areas. So a bit under the restraining bolt there, which you can't see most of when it's on, but you know. I'm also going to add some more, say, just finer, actually paying attention to where it's going, brushing in some bits where dust and dirt would build up and gather, right in the corners and things. Not lots, just a little bits more picking out. So I'm going to get that done, and then that should, I think, be the end of it. So once it's all done, I'll show you the finished model, and we'll see how he looks. That's how I'm leaving him. I'm happy with how he's come out. There's, I say, enough dirt to make it look like he's a used droid, without it being over the top and, you know, filthy. But he's definitely not the pristine droid that he was, but he's okay. Say some detail work. If you don't use the restraining bolt, then it still looks like he should have a restraining bolt. But I think most of the time that we're sitting on there anyway. There's, say, a bit more dirt around the feet. Sorry for the lighting, but I can't really do much about that on here, because the feet are where you know, all the dirt's going to be. Let's see if I can't get a little bit more lighting around. So yeah, that's the finish of the R2 build now. The app has already been updated one step, but the hologram's still not quite right. So I'm assuming there's going to be more updates to that as it goes by, but I'm going to call it a day. I'm happy with that. R2's finished and good to go. Let's say turn him on for the final time on video. Stop him from running forward. There we go. So he's all happy and working. Let him have the final word. Thanks for following the build. See you soon.